Hello and welcome to the Youth Trauma Allies podcast. Today we're chatting through the landscape of healing, a journey through trauma recovery. I hope you enjoy.
Relax.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It sounds completely counterintuitive, right? I mean, we are conditioned to think that commanding a distressed mind to just calm down is the logical first step to feeling better.
Right, it seems like common sense.
Exactly. But practically speaking, telling a dysregulated nervous system to simply relax is, well, it's like throwing a bucket of gasoline on a house fire.
It really is. It triggers the exact opposite of the intended effect.
Wait, really? The exact opposite?
Yeah. The brain's threat detection center, it actually perceives that command to lower its shields as a direct threat to its survival.
Oh, wow. So it doubles down.
Precisely. And that biological paradox is exactly why we are taking a deep dive today into some really fascinating source material.
Yes. Today we are looking at a 60-minute trauma recovery hypnosis script. It's titled The Journey Through the Forest and Beyond.
And, we should clarify right up front.
Oh, right, the hypnosis thing. If the word hypnosis makes you picture, like, a swinging pocket watch or a stage magician, we really need to leave that cliche behind.
Definitely. What we are analyzing today is a highly clinical psychological landscape.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission for this deep dive is to figure out the actual mechanics of this process. Like, how do carefully constructed metaphors and guided imagery slip past the brain's logical defense systems to actually process complex trauma?
What's fascinating here is the underlying neurobiology that dictates the sheer architecture of this script.
Right, because it's not just a nice story.
Exactly. When an individual experiences trauma, the amygdala, which is basically the brain's emotional alarm bell, becomes hyperactive.
It's just ringing constantly.
Right. And meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, which handles all our logic and reasoning, it often just gets completely bypassed.
So logic goes out the window.
Completely. So if a practitioner simply says, "You are safe now, the event is over," they are appealing to the logical brain.
Which isn't even online.
Exactly. The inflamed amygdala isn't listening to logic, but metaphor and imagery. They speak the exact same symbolic sensory language as the amygdala.
That makes so much sense. And the script's entirely built around this principle, right?
It is. It begins with a highly deliberate, almost agonizingly slow pacing.
Yeah, let's look closely at that beginning, the settling in phase. The script asks the subject to notice the surface supporting them, and it notes that there is nothing to do, nowhere else to be.
It's setting a baseline.
Right. But the most striking instruction is that it actively tells the subject they do not have to relax.
Which is huge.
It instructs them to just allow whatever is here to be here.
But wait, I'm a bit confused by this.
How so?
Well, if the entire goal of this 60-minute session is trauma recovery and nervous system regulation, isn't telling them, you don't have to relax, basically giving up at the starting line.
It does sound like a surrender, I grant you that.
I mean, it's like trying to fall asleep. The harder you try, the more awake you are. But how does validating their physical tension actually help? Well, it's actually a highly strategic clinical maneuver. Trauma, at its core, is an experience of profound helplessness.
Right.
It strips away an individual's agency. So, if a script commands a traumatized nervous system to let go, it is basically mirroring that original dynamic of stripping away control.
Oh, wow. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, the brain will immediately reject it. By explicitly stating you don't need to relax, the script is handing the authority back to the subject.
Okay, I see. So by giving the brain permission to keep its armor on, the armor naturally becomes a little less heavy.
Precisely. You don't have to fight the armor anymore.
And ironically, that permission not to relax probably makes you relax.
It almost always does. From there, the script guides the subject to the edge of a quiet path leading into a personal forest.
And the text describes it as being filled with air, light, and possibility.
Right. But the functional mechanism here is that the subject dictates the pace.
They're the ones in charge.
Completely. They are told they only have to step forward when they feel entirely ready. The environment is entirely subservient to their autonomy.
Setting those ground rules makes total sense to me. But once the brain actually believes it has control, what happens next?
Oh, they have to start moving.
Right, because you can't just stay at the edge of the woods forever if you actually want to process the past.
Exactly. So the script moves into a phase that utilizes a psychological technique called distancing.
Distancing. Okay, how does that work?
The subject walks deeper into the forest and discovers an area that has clearly been through an intense blaze.
The burnt forest.
Yes. The text highlights charred trees and darkened ground, explicitly noting them as signs that something intense once moved through here.
It's presenting a landscape that has clearly been damaged. But, I mean, I'm struggling to see how visualizing a burnt tree helps someone process a very real, very human experience.
Like what?
Like a severe injury or a devastating breakup or abuse. Doesn't the brain know it's just looking at a metaphor?
The conscious brain knows it is a metaphor, yes. But the subconscious brain, it processes the emotional resonance as entirely real.
Really? Just from picturing a tree?
Yes. This burnt forest serves as a clinical proxy for the traumatized self. Asking a subject to directly confront their own specific trauma often leads to emotional flooding.
Where they just get totally overwhelmed.
Exactly. They become so overwhelmed that their brain shuts down. But asking them to look at a burnt tree, that provides a crucial buffer.
It gives them some breathing room.
Right. It acknowledges that something highly destructive and life-altering occurred, validating the pain, but from a safe psychological distance.
That is so smart. I mean, think about your own life for a second, right? To the listener, think about any fires you've survived.
We've all had them.
Right? A major career collapse, a loss, a period of deep depression. We usually just want to look away from the damage.
It's human nature to avoid it.
But the script doesn't just stare at the ash. It shifts the focus. It asks the subject to look closely at the darkened earth, pointing out small green shoots and tiny leaves reaching toward the light.
That's a vital pivot.
It establishes that while the fire burned the visible branches, it completely failed to destroy the strong, hidden roots beneath the soil.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture of recovery, traumatized individuals often carry a deeply ingrained belief that they are fundamentally ruined.
That they're just broken beyond repair.
Exactly. The enduring roots in this imagery directly challenge that cognitive distortion.
By showing that something survived.
Yes. The script points out that these roots represent the parts of the subject that carried them through the hardest times. It actively shifts the internal narrative from "I am destroyed" to "I am enduring."
I love that. Doesn't this reframe survival itself as a victory?
It really does.
I mean, in our daily lives, we are so conditioned to praise the big, visible branches of success, promotions, milestones, looking perfectly put together on social media.
The outward signs of thriving.
Right. We rarely throw a parade for simply getting out of bed during a terrible month. But here, the invisible root system is elevated as the hero. It's the vital mechanism of life.
And doing that neutralizes the shame of merely surviving. Healing is then framed not as a magical erasure of the fire.
Which is impossible anyway.
Exactly. But rather as a process of quiet growth and a gentle return.
Okay, so if the roots represent the things that kept a person alive during the fire, how does the mind reconcile the fact that some of those survival skills actually become problems later on?
What do you mean?
Like shutting down emotionally or being constantly hypervigilant. Those keep you safe during the fire, but they ruin your life afterward.
Ah, yes. That tension is addressed in the next phase of the script through a concept known as externalization.
Externalization.
Yes. As the subject continues down the path, the script brings their attention to the weight of a backpack on their shoulders.
A weight they hadn't even realized they were carrying until that exact moment.
Yes. The script identifies that this backpack holds experiences, feelings, and beliefs picked up along the way.
Just accumulated baggage.
Right. The subject is instructed to find a safe place to sit, remove the backpack, and examine the contents, asking a very specific question of each item.
Which is this something I still need?
Precisely.
And here's where it gets really interesting to me. The script does not demonize the heavy items in the back.
Not at all.
It explicitly states some of them were needed at the time. They helped you survive. It offers this incredible grace to our defense mechanisms.
It's a very compassionate approach.
I was trying to conceptualize this, and it feels to me like wearing a heavy winter coat.
Okay, I like where this is going.
That coat absolutely saved your life when you were caught in a blizzard.
Right.
Right. But years later, it's spring, the sun is out, the threat is totally gone, and you are still walking around sweating in this massive, heavy parka.
Yes.
You don't hate the coat. You don't curse the coat for existing. You just recognize that you don't need to wear it today.
That analogy perfectly captures the clinical intent. Honoring coping mechanisms rather than judging them is a cornerstone of trauma therapy.
Because judgment just adds more shame.
Exactly. People frequently berate themselves for their anxiety or their defensive walls. The script neutralizes that self-criticism by acknowledging these behaviors as highly successful survival tools.
Tools that have simply outlived their environmental usefulness.
Exactly.
But what is the subject supposed to do with the heavy items they pull out of the bag? I mean, you can't just leave your trauma lying around on a forest path and litter.
Right. The phrasing of the disposal is critical here. The unneeded items are placed on the ground for the forest to take it, transform it, and recycle it into something new.
From a cognitive perspective, why is that distinction so important? Why use the word recycle instead of just telling them to throw it away?
Because the human brain really struggles with the concept of absolute deletion.
We can't just hit backspace on our memories.
No, you cannot simply delete a memory or a deeply ingrained neural pathway. Suggesting you can creates an expectation of failure.
Because it's going to pop back up eventually.
Right. But the brain can understand transformation. Giving those items back to the forest acknowledges that the energy of those experiences isn't destroyed.
It's just repurposed.
Yes. And as the heavy items leave the backpack, the script emphasizes that space opens up inside it for support, kindness, and self-understanding.
Okay, setting down a heavy coat is one thing.
Yeah.
But processing trauma isn't just about dropping static weight.
No, it's an ongoing process.
Life is volatile. Triggers happen all the time. So how does this mental landscape prepare someone for the predictable nature of just, going through a normal Tuesday?
The environment in the script actually radically changes to address that exact volatility.
Oh, right. They leave the forest.
They do. The forest path opens up to the edge of a vast ocean, and the water introduces a dynamic, unpredictable element.
The way.
Yes. The script uses the ocean waves to represent the sudden surge of post-traumatic emotions, noting that some are gentle while others are massive and strong.
I want to pause here because for anyone listening who has actually experienced a massive wave of panic or a sudden flood of grief,
It's terrifying.
it is. Telling them to just stand there and look at the water feels a little overly simplistic. If I feel like an emotion is going to literally drown me, my first instinct is to build a massive mental brick wall to keep the water out. I brace myself.
Which is the most common trauma response to intense emotion.
Just block it out entirely.
Right. But neurologically, building a wall against an emotion like panic doesn't stop the physiological arousal in the body.
The body's still freaking out.
Exactly. The adrenaline still spikes. The heart rate still climbs. When that internal wave of chemistry hits the psychological wall you've built, the wall shatters.
And that's when you get crushed.
Yes, resulting in the overwhelming experience of emotional flooding.
So the script has to teach the subject how to engage with the water without getting smashed by it.
It does this by giving the subject a tool, a board to float on.
Okay.
The script instructs them to step into the water, explicitly teaching them that they do not have to fight or stop the waves. As a wave rises, they allow themselves to rise with it.
And as it falls, they gently fall.
Exactly.
They're essentially learning to surf their own nervous system.
That's a great way to put it. In clinical terms, they are expanding their window of tolerance.
Lingo of tolerance. I like that.
By visualizing, riding a massive wave, and safely returning to a baseline of calm, the script is helping the brain build new neural pathways.
Proving that it's survivable.
Yes. It demonstrates that it is entirely possible to experience a massive surge of cortisol or adrenaline without being destroyed by it.
That's huge.
It is. Building trust in your ability to feel without escaping or dissociating is a primary metric of recovery.
But, surfing an emotional wave still requires active energy. It takes balance and focus, which is, frankly, exhausting.
It is very taxing work.
At some point, the nervous system has to fundamentally rewire itself, not just manage the daily symptoms. Where does the actual deep-level healing happen in this landscape?
After the shoreline, the subject is guided back to the forest path. And there they observe a caterpillar moving step by step.
Right. And the script draws attention to two specific behaviors here, doesn't it?
It does. It notes that the caterpillar does not rush, and it does not compare its progress to others.
No rushing, no comparing. That's so hard to do.
And then it forms a cocoon.
Ah, the cocoon phase.
Yeah.
Which is usually the exact part of the process that people desperately try to skip over.
Oh, absolutely. This raises an important question about how modern society views healing.
We want it to be instant.
We really do. We expect healing to be a fast, highly visible, triumphant glow-up.
A montage in a movie where you're suddenly fixed.
Exactly. But the script describes the cocoon as a dark, quiet, protected space where unseen, powerful transformation happens.
Reminds me of how a broken bone heals.
How so?
Well, you don't fix a shattered femur by taking it to the gym and making it lift weights to prove how strong it is, right?
Right, that would be disastrous.
You put it in a cast. You plunge it into total darkness and absolute immobility for weeks because that structural fusion can only happen in stillness. The cocoon validates that messy, isolating phase of recovery.
It is a critical validation. Survivors often feel tremendous guilt for needing to withdraw from the world,
Just to rest.
Yes, to rest, or to lower their daily expectations while these invisible psychological changes are occurring. The script insists that true healing requires profound patience.
And eventually that patience actually yields a result. The cocoon slowly opens and a butterfly emerges.
Yes.
The script describes the butterfly as delicate yet strong. But the phrase that really caught my attention was this: different yet still the same being.
That's a beautiful line.
It is. So what does this all mean? To me, it touches on the profound grief of trauma. People spend years agonizing, trying to wind the clock back to who they were before the fire, before the damage. But doesn't this imply that the old you is permanently gone?
It does. You cannot unexperience a traumatic event.
The brain is permanently changed.
Yes, the neural pathways have been altered. Striving to return to a past version of the self forces a survivor into a state of constant failure.
Because that person doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly. Instead, the goal is integration. You are fundamentally the same soul, but your form has adapted.
You have become this new, winged version of yourself, completely on your own timeline.
That acceptance of fundamental change is really the climax of the psychological journey here.
So what happens next? They can't just stay in the forest forever.
Right. From there, the script moves into the integration and return phase, gently preparing the subject to leave the trance state.
But they aren't coming back empty-handed. They are walking back out of the woods, carrying the resilience of the roots, the lightness of the sorted backpack, the rhythm of the waves, and the transformation of the butterfly.
A whole new toolkit.
Yeah. And then the script slowly brings awareness back to the physical body, like the feeling of breath, the movement of fingers and toes.
And it leaves the subject with a reassuring directive that healing is already happening.
Which is such a comforting thought.
It reinforces that the subconscious mind will continue this work even after the session ends. Furthermore, the source material includes a set of post-session reflection prompts.
Designed to bridge that abstract imagery with conscious daily reality.
Exactly. It asks the subject to evaluate their actual life through the lens of the metaphor.
Like what kind of prompts?
It prompts questions like, what did your specific forest look like? Or what items did you actively release from your backpack?
Bringing the subconscious into the conscious.
Right. It challenges the listener to identify what their butterfly represents today, or to locate one small, visible sign of green shoot growth in their current routine.
It basically takes this vast imaginary landscape and pins it directly to your Tuesday afternoon.
Which makes the healing practical.
Exactly. Which brings me to a thought I have not been able to shake since we started unpacking this material today.
Oh, what's that?
Well, we've just spent this entire deep dive analyzing how powerfully the human nervous system responds to the imaginary environments we build in our minds.
Right.
The brain can literally lower its blood pressure and reduce cortisol just by walking through a visualized forest or floating on a visualized ocean.
Because to the deeper structures of the brain, a vividly imagined safe environment is neurologically indistinguishable from a physical safe environment.
Right. So what happens if we take that data and apply it to our physical reality?
Okay, I'm listening.
If a visualized cocoon brings your nervous system out of fight or flight, could you use the principles of environmental psychology to organize an actual physical cocoon corner in your own home?
Oh, that's a fascinating idea.
Like a space with specific lighting, specific textures, where the absolute rule is no rushing, no comparing.
You are suggesting that intentionally curating our physical spaces to mimic these psychological landscapes could act as a continuous ambient form of nervous system regulation.
Exactly. It's something for you, the listener, to seriously consider the next time you arrange your living room, your bedroom, or even just your desk.
Are you mirroring the chaos, or are you building a sanctuary?
Right. Are you building an environment that demands you to be constantly on, mirroring the stress of the outside world? Or are you building a forest?
Because the environment dictates the healing.
It does, because when you are dealing with the murky, complicated landscape of the human mind, Healing is rarely a matter of barking logical commands at yourself to just get over it or relax.
It never works.
Never. Sometimes, the most effective way to heal is simply to wander into a quiet space, feel the weight of the backpack you've been carrying, and finally give yourself the authority to set it down.
Hello, and thank you for listening to Youth Trauma Allies podcast. We hope you found it interesting. And if you'd like to come back, just subscribe to our YouTube channel, as we'll be putting lots more interesting content on. Bye for now.